Karma knows no bounds. Not your religion.
Definitely not your race.
Nor your gender.
And unfortunately, even your age.
Let's begin the story in Japan, where everything happened for a reason. Miyuki picked up the first book she saw. The one on top of the pile of books at the garbage disposal point in her neighborhood. It was Monday, the only day of the week when people could dispose of unwanted books. At least in the ward where she lives, somewhere in the bedroom community of Yokohama. She randomly opened a page. To page 3, to be exact, and it read.
She screamed for help until her strength faded, and her voice went hoarse. Defeated, the terrified young woman hung her head and began to sob. She cried and thought of her parents and how she wants to see them, or her new Dalmatian puppy again. She regret not getting married and starting a family. What the hell? Did a man write this? Does he think all women want to be married and have children?
Miyuki closed the book and stared at the front page. Swing Song by Daniel Cole. Happy that she had guessed right. A man. But annoyed at the same time by this writer's presumptuous attempt at a pathetic portrayal of what might a woman, at the brink of her death, chooses to regret. The puppy maybe, but marriage and babies? The opposite might be truer in fact, glad that she would be leaving no one behind to grieve her demise, let alone a child. She immediately realizes the irony of it. Why do women, herself included, always have the need to put others first before themselves? Even if it was just for a hypothetical family. A family that never existed. Just a year ago, Miyuki was held captive in an abandoned house for a month, in the rural area of Kinugawa, Nikko City in Tochigi Prefecture, Japan. It did cross her mind what it feels like to die during the ordeal. Being chained up like an animal, and only allowed to use the bathroom once a day. Getting married and starting a family was the last thing on her mind. It was an irony though, because the desire to get married was what had gotten her into such a predicament. She realized the hypocrisy. She was exactly like the pathetic woman portrayed by Daniel Cole in the book she was so judgmental about. About half a year or so before the kidnap, Miyuki had registered with a marriage hunting agent, commonly known as Kekkonkatsudo in Japan, for the sole purpose of finding a decent man for marriage and starting a family. After a string of bad relationships with a bunch of men she'd met through Tinder, she decided to register with a high-end marriage agent instead. Boasting to be one of the best in Japan, but with a premium price of tens of thousands of yen per month, just for the most basic membership fee. In return, she gets to have access to the so-called best bachelors in Japan. She uploaded a profile, including several pictures, taken by a professional photographer she had hired, especially for such things. She made a list of traits she had wanted in a husband, for the best match. Once it was confirmed, they would then proceed on a first date, usually in a cafe. A face-to-face meeting, to gauge the chemistry between them, to see if they were on the same page. At 36, she knew it was a tight competition. All she'd hoped for was a few basic things. First, no more than 2 years younger, or more than 6 years older than her. He must not smoke and needs to be at least 5 feet 9, and earning no less than 10 million yen annually. It's important that he loves dogs. And of course, she needs to like him. Having lived in New Zealand and Canada for several years, she'd met a few men, nice but didn't quite fit in. Maybe it was their different sense of humor? Anyway, fast forward to a month or two down the road, Miyuki found herself already on a couple of dates with a man named Tetsuya. He didn't particularly stand out from the other candidates, just an average guy who made her feel comfortable. A sense of humor that she could relate to, perhaps. They had moved beyond coffee dates pretty quickly, to a day trip somewhere for the holidays, to moving in together, all within the 3 months of getting to know each other. Maybe because it costs money for every extra month that they had to extend their membership with the marriage agent. Some believe it is one of the tactics to get couples to speed up their way into marriage. And if it truly was, it worked well for Miyuki and Tetsuya, for by the 5th month, he'd already asked her, in the old-fashioned Japanese way, if she wanted to be family, to register under the same kosei, referring to Japan's official family registry system. If she was willing to change her family name from Hamamura to his family name of Furusawa. Or, in the Western world, one would say in such circumstance, "Will you marry me?" Followed by an obligatory diamond ring. She'd happily said yes, albeit without the diamond ring, and by the 6th month, off they went to Nikko City, Tochigi Prefecture, visiting his side of the family for the first time. She'd only heard all the good things about his parents and sister, but never met them. He, on the other hand, had met her parents on multiple occasions. It took a bit more than a 3-hour drive from Konogawa to Tochigi Prefecture. She'd fallen asleep while Tetsuya was driving. Had she known that he'd be making a pit stop at one of the many resting areas on the way, she'd asked him to wake her up. Unfortunately, not only did he not want to wake her up, but he'd also forgotten to lock the door. It shouldn't be a problem for a country like Japan, but against all odds, it proved fatal that day. There was a creep lurking around in the parking lot. He'd apparently been on the most wanted list of fugitives in Japan. It was exactly the kind of opportunity he was looking for that day. An unlocked car that he could drive off and earn some money selling. Miyuki's seat had reclined all the way, so it didn't catch his attention at first. It wouldn't have mattered anyway. He had nothing to lose at that point. The severity of his past crime was even worse than what he was about to do. Miyuki, being a heavy sleeper, who struggles to wake up even with the loudest alarm clock, continued sleeping, unaware of what was about to go down. Strange enough, he'd drive them all the way to Nikko City too, but it was now to an abandoned house he'd come across several months before. It was the perfect place to keep her captive. Convinced he could get away with killing her, and then burying the body somewhere nearby afterwards. It wasn't hard for him to find Miyuki's phone without waking her up. On the lock screen was a picture of Miyuki and Tetsuya on one of their short trips. He smirked and said,
"The idiot. バカ野郎. Who left the door unlocked? She's paying for it."
He threw it out of the window while speeding down the highway. Miyuki, still in a deep slumber, made him convinced that all of this is meant to happen. That their fates were intertwined, surely, in a very crooked twist. Then one day, just like that, as if also by fate, the perpetrator, still thought to be at large to this very day, had allegedly abandoned her, out of the blue, leaving her to die in the freezing temperature, in the middle of winter. He went out one night, after a month. Never came back. The next morning, after he disappeared the night before, an Indian couple, on a skiing trip to Nikko, had found her. They claimed to have made a wrong turn, and ended up at the house where Miyuki was kept, instead of the Airbnb that they'd booked. The front door unlocked, and inside, they found her in a dire condition. Only God knows how they ended up there, considering how the actual Airbnb was not 4 miles away. What happened next was a blur. She had to spend several weeks or so on the hospital bed, recovering. She did not learn of their names until much later. Himanshu and Chetna. Those were the two murderers who showed up at the right place and the right time, and were held heroes by the local police, unaware of the real story. While Miyuki now spends her time walking the streets of Yokohama, still recovering from the trauma of the ordeal, Chetna, on the other hand, had just given birth to a baby boy a few months ago. Conceived during the ski trip a year ago, that had rekindled her marriage to Himanshu, who had initially wanted out. They'd been married for 7 years, and like most Indian marriages, an arranged one. The initial novelty of getting married had gone stale by their 5th year. And by the 6th year, the only thing that Himanshu could appreciate from the union was sharing food with his wife, which was not an entirely bad thing. But then, making claims like,
Chetna's metabolism is really high, so she gets hungry all the time.
Unaware that he was the cause of her always going hungry. It was not entirely his fault though, because she let it happen. In fact, often thinking that a normal adult-sized portion could be too much for her. Whether it was his problem as a form of control over his wife, or whether it was her problem for not wanting to eat her own portion alone, but always complaining about being hungry later on, only they know. Chetna was no better about her feelings of being married to Himanshu, often having to make more sacrifices than him for their marriage to work. She had to take her mother-in-law's advice to attend makeup and self-grooming classes to make Himanshu happy.
You need to look nice for your husband.
She would nag. Not like it mattered, because after moving to Japan 3 years ago, Chetna could indeed apply makeup and look stunning all day, but it only went so far. Without a maid around to clean and cook, like what they were used to in India, they had been eating takeouts on paper plates ever since. They really hated doing dishes. But on top of everything else, the one thing that irked them so much about each other is the thought of having a child together. The effort that they would need to put into raising a child, on top of all the other challenges they were facing. It was easy to picture them bickering about who was responsible for what. The only solution for them was to move to a country where hiring a maid and a nanny to shoulder those responsibilities would not cost them an arm and a leg, like in Japan. Miyuki hadn't had the chance to thank them in person for saving her. When she'd finally been discharged from the hospital, she learned that Himanshu and Chetna had already uprooted their lives in Japan, just a few weeks after the incident. Himanshu had gotten himself a job in Kuala Lumpur, the capital city of Malaysia. A country much more suitable, from their point of view, to raise the type of family they want. And now that they have a son together, and a secret to keep, their bond has become even stronger. Until one day, an email came, threatening to unravel the shocking truth of what happened that night in the cold winter town of Nikko, in Tochigi Prefecture. In an isolated and abandoned home, where 4 individuals' karma have intertwined with each other.
Dear Mr. and Mrs. Patel, I hope this email finds you well. It was not easy getting your contact information. I'm sure you might know a thing or two about the privacy law in Japan. It was only by complete coincidence that I happened to pick up a book from a pile about to be collected and disposed of at one of the garbage collection points in the Kawashimacho area of Hodogaya Ward, Yokohama. Swing Song by Daniel Cole. Does it ring a bell? I was both delighted and stunned when I saw the name written on it. Himanshu Patel, bought in April 2024. I knew that it must be you. Strange, but I believe the gods have somewhat aligned our fates to cross paths on multiple occasions in this lifetime. With some connections in the area, I was able to get your email address. What are the chances that you used to live near my parents' house? After what had happened, I have decided to move back together with them. I have not fully recovered yet, but good enough to get by. I'm quite sure I'm almost there with their help. I did not have the chance to say how truly thankful I am to the both of you for saving my life that day. I'm sorry that I could not speak a single word when you found me in that terrible place. I thought that the fever had caused me to hallucinate when I heard people speaking English. I had a flashback to when I was living in Canada. I thought that I was still in Canada. But when I woke up at the hospital, the bitter reality of what had happened had finally registered on me. I went through something terrible. I know that the both of you have too, that same day. I want you to know that the evil man got what he deserved. I want you to know that whatever it is, your secret, is safe with me. It is now our secret. It has been a bit more than a year now with no breaking news. I have been looking out. It seems like we can keep it that way. I am confident. I understand if you want to ignore this email. I just want to say thank you for giving me another chance at life. Yours sincerely, Miyuki Hamamura.
Now, with a nanny tending to her crying baby in the background, Chetna couldn't believe what she just read. What could they have done better that day? If she had known that Miyuki was conscious and understood English, could they have been a bit more discreet amidst all the panic and chaos that ensued after finding out that they had accidentally knocked down a guy and killed him? Then proceeded to bury him in a hole that was strangely already dug out not far away from where he was knocked down. Just right behind the abandoned and dilapidated house, where they found a woman, clearly tortured and chained up like an animal. No doubt, the hole in the ground was meant in fact for Miyuki. There they were, thinking that they had committed the perfect crime. Accidental, but still a crime. To knock someone dead, and then to bury the body. It was snowing so hard that day. All tracks were untraceable, covered by layers of snow. Even the crime scene investigation unit couldn't find anything amiss.
The gods must be looking out for us. All three of us. Maybe we are the heroes after all.
Chetna was convinced after a moment of reflection.
I want you to know that he got what he deserved.
Echoing in her mind throughout the day. That evening, after coming back from work, Himanshu learned of the email. He thought about the book, Swing Song by Daniel Cole. He shouldn't have given it to the guy, Binod, a fellow Indian, and owner of the Indian restaurant in Kawashimacho that he and Chetna used to frequent back in the days when they were still living in Japan.
Who would have thought he'd thrown it out? He could have at least blackened out the name Himanshu written on it.
A habit he got from his late father, who used to write his name onto books he'd just bought.
Miyuki must have gotten the email address from him. That Rechet guy. I hope he didn't let her know that we've moved to Malaysia. I want to leave all this behind, in the past where it belongs. Our son must never know about this.
The baby, now bounded in the realm of samsara, the cycle of birth, death and rebirth, continues crying in the bedroom while his nanny tends to him. His parents, unaware that the Atman, the soul, of the real wretched man, that night in the cold winter in Nikko City, Tochigi, Japan, killed by his parents, had been reincarnated into their precious son. The one who must never know what his parents had done. That evening, Himanshu and Chetna had their favorite chola bhatura for dinner, prepared by their maid. This time, on proper plates. Although this time, doing dishes would be the least of their worries.